So this week we are going to be working with HTML5 forms. And so the web-based readings all have to do with forms and CSS that you use in forms. And the lecture demo goes through all of the different tags that we work with when we are using forms. And in this particular lecture demo, there's just a lot of interactive things. So, you'll be able to kind of play with some of these. And not only do we talk about the tags that create the forms, but we also talk about tags that are used to group elements, okay, and what that looks like. We have a lot of different input tags. It's kind of like the default type. So you can see we've got a lot of uses for an input tag, and then HTML5 added a whole bunch more. So we are going to take a look at what some of these input types do. All of our tags can have attributes added, and one of the attributes is required. So you can add required to any of the tags, and they have to fill it out. Okay, but you'll notice that there are other attributes that you can add as well. So we will be learning about the tags and also taking a look at attributes and when to use the different attributes. And then we start with text or with input tags, and specifically text fields, because those are probably what you see most often in a form. Okay, and then you'll notice that I do have a little styling applied here. For input areas, it does help if you style them because it actually lets you know where to enter the data. Okay, here's an example of a password, and it actually works like a password, so you can't really see what you're entering. And then we get into radio buttons and checkboxes, okay, all of the different things involved in forms. For your textbook assignment, you are going to be creating a very specific form, but for the lab assignment, you are going to be doing your own form. So let's see, for the textbook assignment, you are going to download the customer form and the running club graphic, and you will be adding all of the form text over on the left. Okay, because there's nothing in there as of right now. This is everything that you need to add. Okay, and when possible, you certainly can copy and paste and then make adjustments. Okay, but this is going to be a lot of typing. The first form that you create is always a lot of typing. After that, you will be able to take what you have in this form, copy it, and kind of repurpose it in other forms. Okay, so eventually when you get all of that form, the form tags keyed in, this is what it is going to look like. So make sure you have these three areas and that you have your buttons at the bottom. Now, forms are normally submitted to a script. And so I am also going to have you submit the form to a script. So that code is up here. So you want to be careful how you type that. This is a script that's basically going to read what you have in the form and display it back. Okay, so you'll save this once you've got all of the form code added. And then you are going to open customer form and you are going to save it under a different name. You're going to call it mail to customer form. And then there's only one thing that you have to change, and it is the form tag, because we're going to create a mail to instead of sending it to a script. And I will warn you, the mail to, it tries to open your default mail program, which means that your computer has to have an email app installed. And if you don't, then it will try to use Windows or whatever. So I don't have a default mail program installed. I use Gmail. Gmail is a web-based email. It is not an app. Okay. So don't be surprised if you click or you submit and it tries to install something. You can just cancel out of it. Okay. But I did want you to know how to do this because there's a question about it on your certification. Okay, so that is the textbook assignment. The lab assignment, you're basically going to be creating your own form. And so these are all of the requirements, the different things that you need to add. And I do have a couple of examples that meet those requirements. So this is a technology usage survey, and I did use Flexbox here for responsive formatting. And this is a student preference survey. And again, I used the Flexbox for formatting. Okay. So this is a list of what you need. And again, you're going to be submitting to the form processor. Um, you also have the customer form from the textbook assignment that you could repurpose, save under a different name and then modify it for this as well. Just make sure you look through this list and that you've got all of the requirements added. Okay. And once you're done, you are going to add the customer form and the mail to form under lesson 8 for the textbook stuff. And then under the lab exercises, you're going to add your form. Once you get your form completed, you are going to go into the discussion forum and you are going to share a link to your form. And so I will do that for this one. Okay, so we'll go in here, we'll hit reply, post a link to your form. I'll just paste it right in here. So over here, I clicked on it, it highlighted, I did control and the letter C. And then here, I clicked and pressed control and the letter V, and that will paste. Okay, and then you need to answer some of these questions. So I'm just going to control C to copy, control V down here. Who is the audience? Anyone who uses technology. What is the purpose? Okay, to see what technology they are using. Oh, say technologies. How did you decide on the design and layout? How did I group elements, color scheme, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I used a Flexbox layout to make the page responsive. I grouped. All right, let me see how I grouped this stuff. All right, address stuff, pretty logical. Phone usage, all grouped together, pretty logical. Social media, and then music. So it's kind of grouped by topic. So we've got address information, phone information, social media information, and what's that last one? Music. All right, so I'm going to post this, and you will need to do something similar. And then once people have posted, you can reply to at least one post indicating what you liked about their form. Okay, and that is what you guys are going to be working on this week. If you do have any questions or if you run into problems, please let me know. And you will notice that I did include some additional resources on form design, some examples of forms, and form styling.